Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special Tech Talk because this is going to be the most serious Tech Talk. Thankfully, because my partner in crime, Roshan, is busy, not able to come today. So I'm going to handle the show on my own and I'm super pumped. As you can see, I'm going to keep pressing this and strengthening my wrist and get the endorphin, the endomines or whatever they call that, right? Flowing. So I'm all pumped up. Not just because I'm on the show or handling it on my own, but because we've got two interesting guests here. We've got three interesting guests, very interesting guests, sorry. Two of them are actually partners in crime with a venture accelerator, called ScaleUp Malaysia. One of them is Xelia Tong, and Xelia Tong actually will be very familiar to the ecosystem startup ecosystem in Malaysia because she was a key part of Cradle's team, helping mentor and champion many startups. And then she left and she became a partner in ScaleUp Malaysia, joining Dr. Sivapalan, Aaron, Andre Sequeira, and Shanteli. I think I got the names right, which is amazing for me. You can see I'm super pumped for today's show. And then they ran their first cohort, and then they actually got a Singapore VC, which actually a regional VC, right? Singapore, because the country is so small, it's like a little dot there. They're forced to do everything on a regional scale, which is fantastic. And one of the leading VCs and ecosystem builders there, Jeffrey Seah, with his company called Quest Ventures, has joined as a key partner for ScaleUp Malaysia, to want to take a stake in the companies that they invest in through this their cohort 1, cohort 2. And we're going to talk about cohort 2. And what's interesting about cohort 2 is they normally only want to pick 10. Cohort 1, they pick 10. Cohort 2, they ended up being forced to pick 11 startups because the potential among them was so amazing that they said, let's do 11. And it's just smart of them to do because the startup ecosystem is all about being able to pivot and adjust to situations on the fly, right? Which is what they've done. So congratulations to them for not being so dogmatic. Hey, we got to stick to 10. So let's bring both of them onto the show now. And welcome. Apa khabar, Xelia and Jeffrey?
Kabar baik. Thanks, Karan, for the intro.
No problem.
Hello, Karan.
Very good. So, okay, guys, I'm going to... Okay, sorry, guys is very gender insensitive, folks. Because it's Women's Day, Global Women's Day or something. So, Xelia, apologies for that slip of the tongue there. Look, okay, let's get straight to this. You actually picked 11 startups this time. And I think they're all Xelia Malaysian-based, right? Were there any non-Malaysians but who have formed their startups in Malaysia as part of this 11?
Yes, out of this 11, I think we have 2, which are they are not exactly 100% Malaysian.
It doesn't have to be, right?
Yeah.
So
they're all
wonderful.
Malaysian.
Welcome to Malaysia.
Because I'm no longer with the government, right? So
right.
I can actually invest in companies that is not Malaysian founded.
Fantastic. So welcome to Malaysia. We are open to the whole world to come and base yourself out of here. And of course, if you find Malaysia too hot, you can just go down south where Jeffrey will welcome you with open arms. Singapore right there. But okay, so folks, please share your key thoughts with me about what struck you most about this cohort of 11 companies. And then I'll go to the second question, which is about whether you believe that investing in startups is the way to go to accelerate our regrowth, right, out of this pandemic. So maybe Xelia, you got to go first anyway.
So I think, thank you, ladies first, right? So I think the cohort 2, slightly different from our cohort 1 in the sense that when we get into cohort 2, we were really right smack in the pandemic itself. When we started cohort 1, it was not. But when we decided on cohort 1 investment, it was during the pandemic. So the companies that came in cohort 2, even though everything is gloomy out there, but the kind of energy that we have seen in the 20 companies that have actually joined the program, it was very, I was very excited to be working with them. We look forward to all the sessions that we have with them. We have WhatsApp group with them. They were very interactive. They have the sort of offline without the ScaleUp team sort of a session where they talk among each other as well. But it has been a extremely amazing journey with this 20 companies that we have.
20, but isn't it 21? Why do you say 20?
So out of the 20, then we selected 11 for the investment.
You selected 11. Yeah. So you're saying even just interacting with the 20 was enriching, enlightening, and uplifting experience, right? Energizing.
Yes, correct. Very energizing.
Wow. Okay. What about you, Jeffrey? By the way, before I go on, for everyone listening out there, Jeffrey apparently is a honorary member of the Sikh community also. He's a devotee of one of the legends of marketing and advertising in Malaysia. He apparently is a legend in his own mind lah. The legend in his own mind called Ham, aka Harminder Singh. Okay, so Jeffrey, okay, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Karam. I have a lot of friends around the world, but every time, because I'm quite follicle challenged, not enough hair, so I make friends with my friends who got a lot of hair, And when I was younger, I was politically a bit incorrect. I worked on a shampoo, right? A shampoo brand called Unilever, and they were asking me, say, Jeff, where do you think these shampoos have the highest penetration? I say maybe Punjab, and then all my bosses look at me and say, Jeff, that's a lousy joke. Then I say, okay, I'm so sorry, because I say I'm from Singapore, but sometimes I crack Singapore joke. So anyway, back to this, right? I think this name of this partnership, I think my partners and myself, and I think have always had many interactions with Malaysia and Southeast Asia and the global world for a long time. And whilst are divided geographically, but the nuance of business today is not the same as last time. All right, you don't limit yourself to your borders, because your ecosystem. The only two things that limit yourself to a border is either tax, all right, or currency controls. Other than that, no one is restricted to one place. All right, you can be anywhere, and the humans can be diaspora. So can your products and services. So when we hear this plan and the Xelia Tong and the rest of them that you talked about, right? I'm not going to run through all the names because I might miss out one and it will show my age. But I think everyone's thinking they call it SUM, and then to me it was always SUM sum. All right, we bring the sum of the parts, make it bigger. But my Malaysian colleagues call it ScaleUp Malaysia. Technically speaking, right, there was no Malaysia at all. Our conversations about scaling up here and then going into every market and conquering the world. So that thinking also belies that you need a team of people who are very different. Whether they are ladies, they are men, they are Khalistan, whether they still carry the comb, the dagger, right, and everything else, right? I mean, a lot of friends will help me. I learned to tie a turban. Man, my biceps got bigger. But I think that the idea of doing business across the world is very important. It's not just inventing a thing for the marketplace. We also feel that the Malaysian market has been, in a way, a bit unfairly underjudged or undervalued, even, might say. Many of the thinking, many of the process are similar to everywhere across the world. It's just perhaps the context. There's a context, and the government platforms per se, they help them carry across the world might not be there. So we thought that because Quest Ventures and we are 3 partners who we actually carry a Singapore passport, but if you look at our careers, we all achieve our careers outside Singapore. Right?
You're global citizens, okay.
Yeah, and then from there we thought that we can share some thinking with all the startups, partner them in the journey of growth. It wasn't about money, right? Money, financial doping, everyone can do, but I think relationships and entering marketplaces are different. I mean, like for example, my little knowledge of Khalistan and Punjab and my friends from Sikhism side, I thought I learned it a lot from my friends, and then I probably have the same thought across the world. I might not know everything, 3-4%, but I thought it's a starting point. And I think we see so much potential. That's why we come together, partner, irrespective of the nationalities.
Nice. I love what you said early on. So Xelia, you better quickly, while Jeffrey is talking, go and trademark the name ScaleUp Asia.
SUM.
It shouldn't be ScaleUp Malaysia.
Yeah, I think we did that already.
Okay.
We have already done that already.
Very good. Smart. So I think it's great that Jeffrey is there also, because he'll probably inject a more global or regional outlook in the companies you're looking at also. So it's a plus. It's a win-win for both of you all. Then he forces you all to think maybe bigger than you would initially. And that benefits him also, and the startups that you invest in. But Jeffrey, with the 11 that were picked, what struck you about them? Was there any commonality in how they're using tech, or they all want to get IP, or was there anything? And then was there anything significantly different versus maybe startups you see in Indonesia or Philippines or Indonesia? The Singapore one, of course, I don't say Singapore startup. Okay? I think any startup that's in Singapore is actually by de facto a regional startup at the least, right? So I think so. I could be wrong, but I think in Singapore there's no Singapore startups; it's regional startups.
I think it's a good question, Karam. The startups I saw in Malaysia, I think they all exhibit global characteristics of good
Oh, wow.
startups.
Okay.
And my understanding of actually before I became I worked in a corporate world, and
Correct.
I worked in the advertising marketing world across 25 years and across
Wow.
about 20 markets. And one of the key things I learned was that innovation, disruption, and trying to introduce new things is not easy.
Oh,
If
yeah. Of course.
something you share with people and people buy it the first time, that thing is likely not new at all. So I mean, if I turn the clock back 2003, I tried to sell a big marketing client this new marketing service called Google. So
Oh,
after I spent 2 hours, the client told me in my face and said, "Jeff, you're from advertising world. You guys talk a lot of, you guys push it a lot. I think Google is a crap. It's a fly by night
wow.
company. It will disappear." So this big company, so I received this message from many customers and clients a few hundred times over my life, from
Wow.
Google to Facebook to Alibaba to Apple to even going e-commerce. They were, because everyone is so comfortable in the established world, they don't see the need to change unless the boat starts leaking. So these are adage that it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's gone.
Mm.
It's gone. You need to invent before you disrupt, because the timing is so small. In today's world, you have no change. So when I look at the startup founders, I look for people who are very clear-minded. They have a
Clear-minded.
goal. They have a goal, but yet they're also very mature in their own way. They are very disciplined, committed, and they are very self-aware. What's most important for me was they need to have an awareness of their own vulnerabilities.
Oh,
Some of them talk in a bullet train in every possible way, but they will never let you see any weakness,
oh,
acknowledge any
okay.
weakness. They think they are God's gift, they are perfect, and they will carry you to nirvana. So that we are careful. Some follow a formula, right? In education, there's no such thing as a formula. An
Sure.
examina- an examination that you take SPM is just a momentary test. It's like a penalty kick in a football match.
Okay.
One match of an entire season. If you want to play to a World Cup winner, you got to be consistent over 4 years, not in one match. So
Okay.
people think that startups is just one place. So I look for people who are aware, grounded, committed, have a clear vision, know what it takes to sacrifice to get there, and they're able to communicate with you. But most importantly, they're also coachable. All right,
Mm.
because the last thing I want is a messiah that can only lead from the front and lead all the rats into the river, and then before you jump in, everyone run away. So they are not sure. So we look for these, and hopefully the 11 we pick, some might not clear the hurdle fully, some
Sure.
do, but we believe that everyone has the potential to be where it is.
Okay. But so I want to ask, what did you all have? So before I forget, because I didn't tell the audience that each of the startups received 250,000 ringgit as an
Mm.
investment in return for X percentage. Do you all share that percentage? Because I know what it is, but do you share this publicly with people or you don't?
No,
The
we do share the
percentage.
percentage. We don't share them publicly
Oh,
because
okay,
sometimes
fine.
Xelia needs to buy me whiskey, and I had to buy Xelia some
At Changi for now. Yes.
share. We're supposed to meet at a clubhouse, no, but our clubhouse is Changi Airport clubhouse, right?
Changi, oh,
Yes.
Changi,
Yeah,
physical.
Changi Airport has no customers, so the whiskeys are really cheap right now. So we all go to
Okay.
Changi Airport
So you
to
don't
meet.
share that, okay? But okay, I know what it is. So it's 250,000 each, and I think you've pumped in about 2.5 million, which is about so 250,000 is what, 65,000 US dollars, right? Because we've got people non-Malaysians listening in also, so it's about
Yeah,
67,000, right, per
but
startup.
but to me, right, I think the monetary part is the smallest thing. The
Oh,
big
okay.
part was a lot of the money involved also holding sessions for them to meet other investors,
Oh,
to meet
yes.
customers in other countries. The coaching we give them, a lot of the work we give them is equivalent to an MBA. It's a concise MBA that you pay to go overseas. Now you got
Okay.
a bunch of people, 9 people that help you open the world, plus all the people we bring to the table for them to meet. So the money is just a very seed money. But I think that those connections will get them 20, 30, 40 times returns.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
this is important because people think that money is everything across the world. To me, it's not. It's just like, well, it's what I call financial doping. If you put too much money without a clarity how to deploy the money and what to use on which insights they get in the marketplace, then it's all money down the drain.
Okay, fair, fair. But I guess the money is an immediate, tangible thing that people can see and say, wow, they raised 250,000. So, of course, the intangibles are the long tail and take much longer, much more meaningful. But the money helps you get some quick buzz of publicity lah, and boost to your self-belief also. Hey, we received this money and all that. So that's why I wanted to highlight for the listeners that there was this money involved. So of course, everything you say is much more important, especially contacting them to customers right around the region, because you guys have a global network. Not yet, scale up Malaysia people, but you guys have a global network, so that helps a lot. So, but I want to ask, did you all argue about any company? And maybe ScaleUp thought that, hey, this is a great company to put in, and you all felt, hey guys, based on our experience, I don't think so. Look, there's this warning signal. And then how did you resolve that? Did you all do 1-2 SOM, or paper, water, paper, scissors, or whatnot, or use something else? I'm wrestling with Dr. Siva.
Xelia, you want to go at it?
Yeah,
I went through anger management course, so I'll let Xelia go.
So I won't say we argue. We have we will have intense debate, right? Because at the end of the day, yeah, robust debate. So like I said, like all 20s were amazing, but then we could only choose that many companies that we can actually invest into. So during investment committee itself, of course, for every company that we do, that we actually listen to, we allow like both partners in terms of Quest as well as ScaleUp to basically share their point of view and all. So we go into that sort of a debate. And basically what happened is that there were certain companies which we may not totally agree on, but we have all came to sort of agree to disagree.
Yeah. But even though when you agree to disagree, how did you then end up selecting? Because maybe the ones that you want and the ones that Quest wants, suddenly you see you got 14 on the table, right? How do you sift out and come to 11, then 10? Was that, how did you manage to do that? What was the ultimate criteria you used? Or was it just simply out hustle the other party and convince them, no, your arguments are stronger than theirs? Because I'm sure readers listeners want to know that also.
So for here, I also want to sort of give credit to one of my partner, Andre, in the sense that he came out with a very robust, what we call a scoring system to ensure that we also have proper sort of like audit trail in terms of like, each one of the IC panels in terms of what they are scoring the investee companies and all, right? So that at the end of the day, I mean, on Quest's side, they have their own LPs where they sort of have to sort of give reports to. So you want to be able to ensure that we have actually conducted everything professionally. So of course, based on the points itself, that would be the starting point of, say, a discussion among the partners. And subsequently, I would have to say, if not most, actually quite a bit where we sort of have common agreement. Potentially only when we came to sort of say the last few spots where we then had to go into a little bit more of a robust sort of debate in terms of, which ones are the one that's more deserving.
Okay. Look, let me ask you both one more question, then we'll move on to the investing in startup as a way out or not. And sorry, there's one long question here from Hubert here, because Roshan, normally when I'm with Roshan, he reads the questions while I'm busy talking to you all, so I can't listen to you all and read questions at the same time. But you can have a look at this question and see if you want to answer this first.
What's it?
So whether should you lower your goal? Jeff, you are VC, so you answer lo.
Hubert, very good question. Thank you, Hubert. Okay, Jeff.
Who's Hubert?
We just have somebody listening into the show.
This guy. Okay, Hubert.
He's a top influencer, 1.3 million followers.
Excellent.
Oh, is it? Wow, so fast, Xelia, you know that? Wow, okay.
I don't influence many things, but I try to influence my kids. Okay, a few thoughts on this one, right? I think a number, anything that is human made, if decided, the human can change it. All right. If you have a target you want to go, there must be a rationale behind it. The raison d'etre of the plan for that race or for that target you want to aim for, got to be clear to the people who are interested in to hear. But if you speak to enough people and they don't get it, then maybe you should go back to the drawing board and see how you want to do it. Now, if you want to aim, if to achieve a certain level, and I mean by X, right, is in terms of certain targets or sales targets or market expansion targets, and you need how much money to achieve it. But if you don't have enough money to achieve it, then you scale your goals accordingly. this is not a school exam. Business is
Of
not a
course.
school exam. Everything is dynamic because the moment you set up, the moment the moment the strategy leaves the desktop on the paper, you go and execute it. People get the first sense of it. Your competition all are ready to attack you. Some are even ready, spying on you. All right. The moment you move, they move, and they have plans ahead. So that you must remember. Then there are also our people out there who might not have plans, but they see you, they react faster than you. So all those things will happen. So I only can say that you have to adapt and have many multiple options to your plans. It's not such a strict binary
True.
or diametric way of looking at things. Importantly, the other element is about valuation and what it is. I will also caution any founders or startup founders not to undervalue yourself. All right, it's just like my first date. When I my first date with my gang girlfriend, now my wife, right? I asked her, I said, "Can I send you home?" She said, "Nope, I'm not gonna let you know my home address." Wow, she was damn tough, man. Tough woman. But I tried to follow her, and I told her it's very dark, should I walk you home? She said, no, no, no. But I think you should never undervalue yourself. It's important to know that you are clear of value. Someone out there appreciate value. But you must also know that time and space are working for you and also against you. So ultimately, it's the judgment of the founder, and that judgment is critically important if you want to be a startup CEO.
I think then when you say it's a situational and the founder's judgment, then I think it's important that founders have a trusted advisor or mentor that they can bounce this off, right? Because you don't want to just ask your management team or your other co-founders. You need to ask somebody who's more experienced, and that's just almost 101 of becoming an entrepreneur. You must find a mentor or somebody old, wiser, right, who's made the mistakes, can share with you that insight when you come to a question like that. But also, I guess, Jeffrey, a question like that is great, but and your answer is very good, nuance also, and that's how it is. But let's move on to the bigger question, which is, whether either of you feel that investing in startups is a way, any way, will help countries to, at least Malaysia and Singapore, to accelerate out of this, the pandemic induced, ballast, right, that is on our ankles, weighing down growth. Maybe Zira, you start first, and then Jeffrey.
So I've always been in the startup
Of
ecosystem, right?
course.
And I've always believed that, yeah, it is really important for us to, really support our startup companies. But then you sort of got to look at the right kind of startups that you also want to support. It is not just the funding itself, although I've always been on the funding side of things.
Sure.
But having spent years in Cradle and then my 1 year with ScaleUp, I realized, like what Jeff said, it's sometimes really not because of the money. So the entire cohort 2 partnership with Quest, where they actually invest money into it, I realized the entire journey where the kind of time spent with the cohort and actually really going down into the business, understanding the kind of challenges that they have and everything, and supporting them through the coaching and mentorship is equally important as funding. But I believe we do have to support our startup companies because it is with technology and innovation that we can actually really help the company grow, because there's also the creation of jobs. And it's usually younger ones that are actually more apt at actually coming out with creativity and stuff like that.
Actually, no, I would challenge you. No, that's a myth. Jeffrey, you can jump in, because I think data has shown that. I think this is from out of Singapore. One of the Singapore VCs accelerator, then he's now a professor at NUS, or honorary professor. His name skips my mind now, but he actually shared a data point to say that actually the most successful founders are those who are in their like late 30s, mid to mid 40 range, And I was quite struck by, he said apparently it's a consistent metric across the world. So Jeffrey, what do you say to that? Because I am challenging Xelia, that is the younger fellows who have got the innovation and the ideas. They've definitely got the drive. They can work 25 hours a day, yes. But what do you think, Jeffrey, about that? Because I'm challenging Xelia on that. Although it's International Women's Day, okay, I may be treading on thin ice here. What do you think, Jeffrey? Oh, you're on mute.
Muted, Jeff.
Yeah, sorry, I'm from Singapore. Sometimes I get muted by the government.
Xelia, don't mute yourself, Xelia. We want you to jump in spontaneously also, okay?
Okay. I wanted to, wait, I wanted to sort of rebut to Karam, right? So although I say the young ones are the one that are creative and innovative, like, so in our cohort 2, I think we have like older entrepreneurs which are creative, but what I'm saying generally, The younger ones are the ones that is actually more creative. And then they bring in the ones which has got experience, the guys who are in their late 20s and 30s, who have actually been in the workforce, and they come in, they actually get them to be more grounded, and then they can probably then scale the company better. But the creativity and the innovation side of things usually come from the younger ones. That's
I
where I want to
totally
clarify.
disagree with you, man. All you above 40, please challenge Xelia now. Swamp this conversation. Oh, okay. What your Jeff? Okay, no. Jeff is just asking you a question, but okay, but before that, Jeff answered the question first that I asked you whether is the older category that I think are more successful, and then you can take Bernard Haw's question. Bernard Haw is actually a serial entrepreneur, and just quickly, at one point he partnered with his I think university mate, who's an Indian national. They set up one of the earliest Indian digital companies marketing to youth, and they ended up selling that company to a larger Indian multinational. So he's an interesting entrepreneur. Just quick snippet of him before you take his question. But do you believe that entrepreneurs in your experience are the younger category or the middle-aged ones who end up being successful?
My view is simple. I think age is a number. I think it's also your experience. But
Okay.
I think to Xelia's point, the younger people naturally have a bit more stamina.
Oh,
right?
totally. Yes.
I think the stamina and the dexterity to focus. There's a bit of a joke. One of our investor startups, right, where the CMO, he says, a young girl who's one of the startups that Quest Ventures invested in, he says that, I wanted a 9 to 5 job. So I started a company. And after I started a company, I have to work 24/7, right? So when you are a startup founder, you work 24/7. You are not in control. You might think you're in control because you own a company, but you are not in control. So sometimes stamina does play a part. Now, age-wise, I think to the professor at NUS who talked about you're right. Statistically, if you look longer across the board, you measure across everything, you will find a normal, your stratified sampling, you'll find a normal size that says that it's within this age band. And you have maybe 90% confidence interval for that. But let me be clear also, startups are black swan events, right? They are not sequential. So a statistical model is sequential. At best, a Poisson distribution. But this is a black swan event. You get spurious correlations and outliers. And the best startups come from there. Most of the startup founders, as you know, are they drop out of school, or they have some weird behaviors, or they like to sleep, they cannot sleep, or they like to sleep under the computer chair or whatever, like Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs. And they go on and very driven, very clear. They are messiah, yet they are also a bit fascist. So they are narcissistic by nature, they're also arrogant. But some of them, when they find the right things in their life, like anchor, the mother, the wife, the kids, the partner, the VC, the right VC, or the right accelerator like SUM,
okay,
then the rough edges get smoothened. The rough edges get smoothened. And then they are become a lot more mainstream. Then with time, you see them are good. So to Hubert's point, young at heart is great. To Bernard's question about valuation or too early, it's never too early. It's the right fit. But it's too early because of a fund. Right? So every fund is non-living things, artificial, like Quest Venture Asia Fund 2. We can allow in certain size, investment size. But before I had a Quest Venture Asia Fund 2, I was an angel investor for more than 10 years. Yeah. So when I was an angel investor, just like whiskey, right? Angel share, right? I know I have no limitation to what I like to invest in and stuff.
Correct.
But you got to find the right people that will help you advise. So Bernard, that's the question I have for you. I know you're a co-founder with some new company. We hope we have a chance to work with you a bit. But I think there's no such thing as too early. It's actually the matching of the time, right? Okay. If you are old enough, like Karam and me, read Alfred Hitchcock. It's called the Minuteman theory. You need to get the right Minuteman at the right time.
Okay, true. No, actually, when you say the young players got endless energy, I remember Patrick Grove and Nick Lim when they were running Catcha.com in 2098. He said that they literally would sleep in the office days on end, and he said the smell of each other was disgusting. So literally, he was saying how hard they had to work. So that's why Patrick Grove likes to invest in young ones, because he said they can run through walls also, and then he provides the wisdom and the experience, right? So it's that combination. But I mean, the record shows, I think Dr. Parthiban just now shared that he's also read the same report, that is guys who are in their late 30s and mid 40s, that seems to be the sweet spot for the ones who become successful eventually. So they're able to pivot and learn. Maybe the maturity comes in that you're in the game long enough that you got the maturity to make the right decisions fast enough to survive, right? Or to get to the next level of funding. I know Hubert is, of course, Hubert is only 30 years old. He's some, a multi-million influencer, but he agrees with Xelia, but I disagree with Hubert and Xelia. So maybe next time we get Hubert on the show and I'll debate with him. But okay, now, there's one long question here. Oh man, the questions are, you guys have excited our listeners. So, okay, do any of you want to take on this question? Then I got to put you backstage and I got to bring on our next guest.
I don't think it was a question.
Oh, it's just a comment.
It
Okay,
was
too
just
long for me to read.
It was just a comment. Yeah.
Okay.
Just a comment.
Machi comment. I sleep. Wow, see? So Hubert is an insane guy. But that's the kind of mentality you want, right? If you want to invest, you want to bet on someone, you want them to be crazy like this, right? Where they are willing to walk through walls to make their startup successful. Correct, Jeffrey and Xelia?
Karam, I want to tell you, there's this in this year 2004. This
2004,
guy, 2004, this guy came and tell me about this new thing he had. And I met him and he keeps trusting my face, a PO to sign. So he came and see me 4 times in 1 week. So at the end of the week, the 5th day, on a Friday a week, I signed a contract to give a PO to a company called Catcher.com.
Catcher.com?
I gave him his PO in 2014. So Patrick is an amazing guy who is so strong and so determined to get this done. Sometimes he rolls over everything in his way. All right? And the things you roll over include living things and non-living things as well. But Patrick is Patrick, and I think he's such a force of nature, and sometimes he gives us a very nice axis to look at in a part of the world. But I must say that the dexterity and the determination to succeed is important. I would say that the startups need to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. All right, and then that's one part, and the second part is you got to recognize that you need to make a few mistakes every day. If you're not making mistakes every day, you're not pushing the boundaries.
You're not learning.
Wow.
And then I think if you really want to have networks in your life, you got to first make friends with everyone. Make friends before you make networks. Because when you make friends with people, the networks will come. You try to go out just network people, you'll just be another number. And that's why it's important to study whoever you want to know, your competition. Know thy opponent, 100 battles, 100 victories.
Okay, interesting. Thanks for your insight there. We're going to move you backstage, and I think if we could keep you on, you get a lot more questions, but we want to try to keep the show tight. And then, Jeffrey may end up leaving because you can hear that he's about to enter a function somewhere. But with the marvel of connectivity, you can appear anywhere if you want to, right? If you're interested enough. So fortunately, he thought this show would be interesting enough, and our audience interesting enough that Jeffrey came on the show with Xelia. So now we will want to bring on our next guest, and Xelia will come on again later after that. The next guest, Dr. Sean Tan, is interesting. He's got an Ivy League education, and I bring that up just because he's a self-taught, computer science, is a coder. He's got legal background, and he's running a company now where he says that his hobby is to build open source microprocessors. But Jeffrey has been in the ecosystem for a long time, and he actually wrote an interesting commentary on My Digital. For the non-Malaysians, this is Malaysia's Digital Economy Master Plan that was just introduced on the 19th of February. And I normally am super bad with names, but it happened to be on the birthday of my son, so I'll never forget the date of the launch of it. So 19th of February, the government launched this My Digital, which is our Malaysia's Digital Economy Master Plan. And Jeffrey looked at it, and he highlighted 5 things that concern him. I highly urge you to read the article, but I'm going to bring Jeffrey on also. He's a bit of a media superstar now because he just finished a session with Astro Awani, which is a leading Malaysian broadcast news channel. And he was on there giving his thoughts about his article. And now back to back, now he's on Tech Talk Friday. Jeffrey, Sean, thanks for your time. And I hope you enjoyed the show just now with Astro Awani.
Thanks for having me.
Not bad. So look, Jeffrey, let's Jeffrey, Sean, Dr. Sean, sorry. Let's get straight to it, right? You highlighted 5 points that concern you, and so for everyone who's watching, his ending conclusion was that to do the same thing again is according to somebody is a definition of insanity, and he brought that up because Malaysia had the early version of a digital economy master plan, which is called our multimedia super corridor. We had our Vision 2020, which was to make Malaysia a technologically advanced nation by 2020. And one of the key facets was actually getting government to be a digital adopter, right? Quick. and then everything else would follow. And there's the digital economy master plan. My Digital has got two components, which is a public sector component and a private sector component. And Jeffrey, I don't know why I'm talking Jeffrey, but Dr. Sean mentioned, Dr. Sean, bro, thank you, Bernard. Dr. Sean highlighted some of the public sector, things, and he says that we got to get this right, and we got to learn from the mistakes of the past. And we literally lost 2 decades because we didn't get it right. And I felt a body blow. I shared in because I've been covering the tech center since 2000, the tech ecosystem, and I should have highlighted the MSC master plan and the various e-government flagships, so that readers could follow them also, right? What's going on, what's the latest. And I dropped the ball on that, and I feel sick to my heart, to the pit of my stomach actually, and I will sleep knowing that I failed my readers and I failed the country every day. And I'm going to use that as an incentive to make sure I do not drop the ball. DNA does not drop the ball with My Digital. We're going to continue to have conversations around it, and Dr. Sean is here today to talk about his opinions of it. So Dr. Sean, the mic is yours.
Okay.
Not a particular pointed question, but what is the key concerns you had, when you're going through the plan and coming up with your article, which is amazing, which is very pointed and critical, in a not overly a critical manner, but in a concerned manner, which is great. I don't like to have that balance, but you do, which is fine.
Well, first, let me say that I'm sorry that I made you sad.
No. It's important. I feel that way. You don't feel sorry. It's something that's needed.
But I also share your grief, because I've also been around for that long, and I've also seen how we have lost 2 decades of early. My company was actually founded in 2000, so 21 years ago. So
wow,
I've been there, been in the industry and seen the changes. But yeah, so from my sort of big overall high level takeaway opinion from reading it is it's 104 pages of very well crafted words. The goals are good and lofty and positive. The fact that they selected Mampu to become a central coordinating agency is also good. At least we have one point of contact rather than everyone.
1 point of failure. So yeah, I think that's important.
1 point rather than every ministry, every agency running around doing its own crazy thing, right? So these are some of the good things that I feel are in that document. But of course, I feel that document is like an aspirational document rather than a concrete master plan, because there's a lot of it's very light on the numbers. Let's put it that way.
Okay, no, good. But I actually coincidentally was talking to somebody who was part of the government that was working on the flagship. Just by bizarre coincidence, he happened. I didn't know, and he says that. That he can empathize with the Mampu people, because there's a huge responsibility being put on them. And the backdrop for those who don't, the non-Malaysians, is that the government right now is actually very weak, right? And there are talks of election maybe coming once Parliament is reconvened. Of course, like many governments around the world, they use the excuse of COVID to impose a, what was the term? What are we in?
Emergency.
So, but it's nothing drastic. The emergency rule is just that Parliament cannot convene, so that there can be no vote of confidence against the government. So with that as a backdrop, civil servants, and this guy was saying, civil servants always say that when they know the minister is about to change, much less government, he said those who are in the project management implementation teams, they start thinking, should we slow down in the execution of this because we're going to get a new boss soon? Or should we accelerate it and get it approved by the new boss? But in this case, because it's so new, likely that the civil servants are going to say, hey, let's just take it slow and wait till the change of government, because the new government will probably do this. They'll come up with their own master plan for sure, but they may have different tweaks, and they may say, no, we'll set up a separate agency to be the lead agency for this. So there are various factors swirling around these beautiful words and this intention, right? And which is very scary, because then there's basically the public servants, especially Mampu, have got all the reason in the world to take it slow and to wait. And really, as a country, we cannot be too slow, because somebody who looked at the document, who's familiar with government, says that this looks like it's something that is helping us keep pace only, not try to outpace or be a leader. So do you feel that way so that it's not going far enough? You think, or there's a lot of startup people who feel that it's not going far along enough and no big goals for us to aim for. Of course, you've got the intention of what 8 unicorns, right? That is a big goal lah. But that seems to be the only one, and that's at the end of 10 years.
Well, like I said, as a document, I don't think we should treat it as like although it's called a blueprint, I don't think we should treat it as a blueprint. It's just more like hopes and wishes. It's a set of hopes and wishes, right? Good wishes, solid wishes. And with regards to the government stability and all that, yeah, we understand that's how the civil service works, lah, of course. But that's also one of the reasons why I've actually one of the suggestions I put forward in my article was to actually not put an administrator or a civil servant in charge, but to actually put in industry engineer or technology, so somebody from the industry with necessary background to actually drive things through. Because
go ahead. And go ahead. And
yeah, to drive things through. And of course, if this person was forced to work, under the so-called control of the minister and all that, then we are still back to square one again, lah. Exactly like what you said. The moment the minister changes, whichever minister in charge, he'll come in with his own ideas, his own agenda, and all the plans, well-laid plans executed halfway, all will just be thrown by the wayside, lah.
I think this is not the minister change. This you will probably see prime minister change or government change. So that's the shaky part, lah. But we actually have to still run with this because we got no time to wait for any change to come, because the change may happen. Because the current in the election, the mandate is till May of 2023, right? So some political maneuvering could happen that they still stay in power. So it's dangerous, and I feel it's risky to say that civil servants we allow the civil servants to think that change is going to happen and let's just wait or delay it further, because the public sector one is the most important one to move. And that's why they've already appointed a very strong manager to be the CEO of that the infrastructure company, right? I think digital. I forget the name. Yeah, but it's called the one's going to build maintain the infrastructure. So, and now with this one-stop agency or body to monitor implementation also, there were already names were leaked out, right? 2 are bureaucrats. One is a former startup entrepreneur, investor who's now in MDEC, and there's another guy who's a former academic who's an entrepreneur listed company CEO. His name is there. So I suspect you probably feel like one of these 2 are better to lead this agency than the 2 bureaucrats in there, right?
Of course, I don't know who they are. I'm not privy to the leaks, right? And I've not studied their CVs or anything, so I can't really tell specifically. But generally speaking, obviously, just on the face of it, I would prefer one of the other 2 rather than the bureaucrats. Because career bureaucrats will end up, it's like a ham. If you give the fella a hammer, everything's a nail, right? So true. Bureaucrats, they have a certain skill set. Their skill set is good for that. But what we're trying to do is basically try to reduce bureaucracy, and so that we can get the change effected. And so, we need someone who's non-bureaucrat, definitely.
Okay.
And with the necessary technological background, definitely.
Yeah, that's why you mentioned especially have a technological background. Okay, interesting. So I know in your article you gave examples. So like you said, United States Digital Service, right, as an example of what's being done. And you actually brought up a very good point about the cloud service with Google, right? Some of these Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. They because their data, then the government is going to let them host the data. They don't have a data center in Malaysia, although they may lease capacity from existing data centers as an interim. Although you are worried that this will not be done by then, you didn't factor in that they could lease capacity from existing data center players here, right? Even Telecom Malaysia would be able to lease them infrastructure, right? Their servers and for them to host the data there, correct? So that's a quick way out of it, although I know you said that they cannot build their own purpose-built data center by the end of next year at the earliest.
Yeah, correct. Because it takes quite a few years from announcing intention to build a data center and to actually operationalize it.
But the point is that they don't need to operate. In the interim, they can use these existing players, right, and rent some data center space from them, right? So it can be done that way also.
Then the next question will be how much data do we want to put inside, right? because the government did target 80%, 80% cloud.
Yeah.
Huge. Then your question is 80% of what? 80% of the current documents that they have, or archived to the cloud, or 80% of all paper documents digitized and then stored in the cloud. What is this, right? If it could be huge, and we don't even know if our current the total amount of storage that we actually have in our data centers in the country at the moment is actually enough to hold all of that.
Okay.
Because somebody to go and count that, and I don't know.
No, I'm glad you brought up that point, because I haven't seen anyone bringing up that point. So that's why regularly on the show we want to bring in deep subject matter experts who can look at the blueprint and point gaps in it, and also credit where they think something well is being done. We don't want to just be disruptive here. We want to be constructively critical, right? Constructively critical. So it's a force for me to get those words out, because I want to be destructive, but we have to be constructively critical, because hey, if we get this right, all Malaysians benefit, right? Now, the producer, can you bring on the Jeffrey? I've been subconsciously calling Sean and Xelia on also, because Bernard asked a question, and I'm hoping that they can share their input also. Jeffrey, you have planted something in me. I don't know why. I hope next week I don't call our guest Jeffrey also.
Sean, I apologize on Karan's behalf. I think Karan probably got approached by 5 insurance salesmen called Jeffrey, so he remembers all of that. And I think it's normal. My wife thinks that Jeffrey is a name from people born in the 1950s. So I guess that's right. But I think it's okay.
Powerful. Okay. So Jeffrey, Bernard Hall, the producer, can you bring up Bernard Hall's question about, is government inadvertently interfering with VCs when they come in with government funding? And I wanted to ask you, Jeffrey, because the Singapore government is hailed as a global model for where government has pumped in a lot of money and said, look, in the early days, right, we'll put in 75 cents, you bring in 25 cents. Then they made it 50-50. Now it's 25-75 once it's mature. But Bernard has got this question. So can you share your perspective as a Singaporean singing work? What do you think of this? Answer this question.
I would take a reflective look at things, right? In my years working in the corporate world, I worked for all the big social media companies or the big advertising companies. They are all owned by Jewish folks, right?
Oh,
so
okay, I didn't know that.
My bosses, I spent a lot of time. I did spend some time looking at a lot of Israeli tech startups and looking at the tech stuff. Many of them are also guided by their government, right? Now, the key point to this is, what is the objective behind this partnership, or in the words of Bernard, interfering, all right? If you have a joint similar objective goal, then it is some kind of partnership can come to understanding, because this is not something that people understand. But effort must be made. It's just like arranged marriage. You Karam, you know as well, right? Love comes after the marriage. So these things sometimes...
Hopefully.
Yeah, when you're horizontal...
Hey, Xelia is frowning. Xelia, jump in right away. Don't worry.
International Women's Day, I'm very careful. Tonight I will have the new one, the durian husk, okay? So I think the interference, or so-called interference, is a negative phrase word. It happens when you have a disagreement on direction. And I think that's important. Direction setting is important. The Singapore government, depending on the lenses you see, has its hits and has its misses. And to a certain point, it's in equal proportions. But the main point behind it is, you should never give up. You should never give up to try to find the right partnerships. Now, I think just like we are coaching youngsters, right, in school, or your children, your nieces, your nephews, or you're giving tuition. Different people at different age group requires different nutrition, especially nutrition and guidance of the mind. I think many companies, many governments, and I say this from my experience in Singapore government, sometimes a desktop strategy looks easy. I can power it, but a grant is seen as affirmative action. A grant that measures outputs might not necessarily get you the outcomes you want. So the key thing is between the outputs and the outcome. While I was on backstage, I was busy reading Dr. Sean's piece.
Oh.
And I saw his piece, and then the previous piece in 2018. I also went back to his pieces in 2014 about Cupid dating. Very good one, Dr. Sean. I like that very much. I think love is in the air. But I think this, when you look at people, right, co-funding things together between a government and the ecosystem. One is coming from a desktop strategy, coming down, trying to legislate and trying to bring some benefits, but they must be clear on the benefits. What they are trying to do is to bring new capabilities, new skill sets, and also new job markets. And in the process, also try to bring change to the entire world.
Okay.
But the VCs, when they come in, we are trying to bet the right things, get them scale, eat up all their competition, and get to somewhere. And depending who you are, whether you are a hard guy or you're a soft bank, right? You just want to get people to a certain place where you want to get the money back. Now, the objectives might not be the same, right? It's asymmetrical in opinion. But if you can agree to disagree that we are different objectives, but we want this guy to succeed, then you might have a solution. I think Dr. Sean's point about interference, right? I think the people going in must have the right purpose, and I agree with Dr. Sean on that part. You have the right purpose, the ecosystem will respond to you. But Bernard obviously had some examples. I mean, I see his Facebook picture, he's on a mountain bike. Maybe he has quite a bit of humps to go through and scrape his knees. But I think this interference part is a common reaction from startups.
Reflex action, okay.
It's a reflex action. But if your government is flooding you with money, like many other ecosystems in the Middle East or in certain countries,
yes,
then you might not be seen that way because you get a lot of baseline to kick off.
Yes.
Right. So I think it all comes back to the table and how do you agree to disagree on? Because the objectives are certainly different and very opposite polar. But we have to make sure that we agree to let it go and let it go forward. So that part is not easy, and it's a continuous exercise of restraint, and at the same time also limited by the money constraints you have. So I don't think I have a right answer to this, but I would say that Singapore government, by sheer force, that it's a small country, they have to continue to reinvent the economy.
Totally.
And then they are doing so. So it's a survival instinct.
Yep, survival. Yeah. In fact, actually, when you talk about survival instinct, one of the old time entrepreneurs in Malaysia was good friends with Lee Kuan Yew, and he told me once that Lee Kuan Yew told him that he told the Singapore civil servants that, look, we are in a war mode, we are in a warlike mode. You have to accept that we are in war, and we're as a small country, we're in a war for survival. And he instilled that warlike mode in the civil servants, and that's why, in the sense that to make them take everything urgent and to act fast and to be responsive, to the stakeholders, whether foreign investors or locals also. And that was an amazing, a strategic, tool, lever he used, right, to get the civil servants on board instead of using a lot of pithies, slogans or whatever, the empty slogans. He actually said we are in a war-like condition, right? We are at war, and amazing. So it has worked. But like I said, yeah, intentions are there, and you got to try to work together and gel the intentions together, because I think there can never be too little money put in by the government, but for a certain X period of time, and then you say your spigot is going to reduce and further reduce. But Malaysia did that actually. We started with a big bang, and then we reduced it. But Dr. Sivapalan just wrote an article to say that it's not enough. He actually made the bold claim that what we have put in was actually chicken feed. And I said, wow, very bold of Dr. Siva, man. So the last I checked, he's still walking around freely in society. So very good. Malaysia is a free society. You can say the billions the government has pumped in is chicken feed, and you're still, a free man breathing the air, fresh air and all. So, but I think he's got a point also, he's so seasoned in the ecosystem. And if he feels that way, I think the government needs to come up with, government 2.0 or 4.0 to pump in more money to try to create unicorns. So Siva was saying that we should put in more money to create a stronger base and try to create some unicorns. And I have my thoughts about whether the unicorn is the magic word, but I think people use unicorn as an aspirational, outcome, so that you push more excitement and create more people who want to achieve that. Like, cause it's still a sexy word, although some are cynical and jaded about it, but a lot more people are excited about it. Hey, I want to be that. So, you use whatever hook you can, to get people excited and say, hey, follow me, man. Come on, there's a lot of work to be done. So look, with that now, I'm normally Roshan likes to give last words to the panelists, and that ends up taking a lot of time. But if you do want to have a final thought, Xelia and Jeffrey and Dr. Sean, not Jeffrey again. I know we'll start with Xelia last. The final word goes to Xelia. So Dr. Sean, we'll let you start first if you have any final thoughts and key takeaways about your article if you want to make a point.
Yeah, so the I think the most important part of my article is just the fact that we've got to empower the central agency Mampu to actually to not just to coordinate and to advise, but to actually deliver code and deliver services and ship code, right? So they need to have the technical, not just the leader, but the necessary expertise. The whole team they are basically a bunch of technologies and coders.
And I think hold people accountable. Like if some agency, if something is not moving somewhere, they, it's like you're two strikes and then we're taking over. We're not giving you more time, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They have to be the ones who lead the charge.
Correct. Lead the charge. Okay. Jeffrey? I was going to say Dr. Jeffrey, man.
I think thank you for the opportunity, Karam, and thank you, Dr. Sean. Now I think I got enough things to read. I'm going to search and read a bit more of your stuff. I like the discourse. In fact, I think Malaysia is a lot more open to be able to talk about this in the air, so I agree. But I'm not comparing relative to anyone, certainly not the place I am. I just think you're open. So the idea of innovation is just like what I just said. What I meant by open can mean different things to different people. Innovation and disruption means different things to different people. So I think to accept the differing opinions and where people start from is important in this space, the startup space, because nothing is normal and nothing is consistent and there's no back real mirror to look at. So I think it takes a lot of people to reach out to others to try to find a comfort zone to work in. And you have the EQ or you have the outreach, or sometimes my colleagues at SUM tell me, you need to not shave, so your face a bit rough so that you can threaten people. There's a guy called Aaron, right? Terrible guy, terrible guy. You get beaten up by him, right? So
it's
I think
gangster.
That one gangster. That one I think he's from the Jalan Rajachulan type.
Sentol. I think Sentol Mari.
Yeah, I quite scared of him. Brickfields type. He can hide in the field in the brickfields there. So I think people like those, you see, the moment I say that, he turned off all the lights.
Exactly. He's hacked into you. He's hacked into your system, man.
He's dangerous bookie. Now he's on back again. But I must say that we have to just work with different people to get this through, because many times I feel that many startups get involved in the crossfire. So they are the real victims. They are the people who are creating value, but they become the real first victims and the final victims. So I feel sad about that. And for them, right, it's all about outcomes. And yet the people around us are looking for outputs. So if we spare a thought for them, we understand that these are the guys that we are really pumping our heart on. And then I think we have to make sure that we get to the objectives where we want. Then I think everyone will benefit. You might not be the first, but sequentially everyone will. I think that will be what I think the startup world needs across the world.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Xelia?
Okay, so for me, firstly, I actually want to say that this entire partnership with Quest has actually been very enriching for me as well, because the Quest team, I think Jeff, they have actually brought in their regional experiences, and also they have brought in a lot of support in terms of the entrepreneurs that they have actually backed all this while, and they're successful entrepreneurs on their own, like the guys from Carl from SCAG and also MoveBee, right? So they have not just inspired our 20 companies, which they have actually spoken to, but also all the partners in ScaleUp Malaysia. And what that makes me say is that the government has actually sort of the chicken feed funds that Doc has actually mentioned. We have actually yet to see it actually being deployed. And one of the things that for us, and also on behalf of all the startups in the ecosystem, we really want to see that, you put your words where your mouth is, in the sense that, you actually put it into action and you don't announce, and then we actually don't see the funds actually being deployed. I think we have had instances where the government has actually announced in 2020 where there was the relief funds and stuff like that and all. I think there has been in the market talk where people say, funds were actually really slow. So for me, my final thought is that although it's chicken feed, but it does still mean something. And we just want to see they are actually going to put the funds, into the ecosystem itself. And the good thing is you are working with regional VCs, say people like Quest and all, and you will bring in a lot of knowledge to the local investment ecosystem as well, not just for the startups.
Sure. No, I think actually Quest Ventures is global because they've got a strong presence in Kazakhstan also, I guess, right?
As well, yes.
Jeffrey, Kazakhstan, yeah. So yeah, it's a global organization, a VC firm. So okay, with that, I just want to, before I end the show, I normally do this before the show, but I'll just share with the readers some quick articles that DNA has covered, which I think is quite helpful. And actually for you can the producer, you can, if you want, you can put the three panelists in the backstage and they can leave if they want to. This is for everyone else because I don't take up their time. And so this is just some of the stories that DNA has written. And one of them is we actually we did a webinar together with Malaysia Kini on mental health. Actually, the webinar was on physical and mental health through technology. And amazingly, all the questions that came, and there were like 30 over questions, were all about mental health. Nobody wanted to talk about the physical part or through technology. Yeah? And it was quite striking for me. So that was quite a good conversation, and he actually went over the 1 hour mark, not as long as today's show. You can go to that article and have a read of some of the key takeaways from the speakers, and especially one of the speakers who's a leading psychologist in Malaysia, and he had his 5 senses he recommends as his vaccine to keeping mental health, in at bay, negative mental health lah. And one more story on the highlight is that the Malaysian telco regulator, the MCMC, actually issued a circular to say that to demanding all the telcos that from now on they have 10 working days to sort out their commercial arrangements with each other. And they've come up with this rule because consumers are complaining that they are getting services to their area slow, and the delay is caused by the 2 different telcos needing to work with each other to deliver a service to a customer, and it's taking too long. So the MC says, look, in 10 days, if you cannot resolve this problem, we are going to come in and resolve it for you. And I looked at it and I said, this is such a common sense solution. Why didn't the last 10 years, the previous MCMC chairmen come up with the same resolution, right? It just shows that when you've got the will, there's a way to do this. So beautifully, elegantly done, MCMC, congratulations. Another one was one of the leading telcos in the country, Celcom. They had their quarterly results and they talked about their growth, where growth was, and they're going to pump in about R1 billion for capital expenditure this year. You can have a look at those articles and how they actually gained. They had a net gain of subscribers last year. And the last quick point is that Magic's 5th cohort for their global accelerator program is open now. So I think you've got about 1 month to go and register and make your case to be part of the cohort, right? And they've done quite well. I think the past cohorts, they've hit a combined $76.5 million in revenue, and total investments they've brought in is about 29 million almost. So that's a good accelerator going. It's award-winning, and I think they're considered one of the best accelerators in the region for sure. Okay, so with that is all I have for this week's Tech Talk. And as you can see, without Roshan also, I managed to somehow go above 1 hour mark. And I know the producer is waiting to kick my behind because I promised him today would have been a 30 to 40 minute show. With that, everyone, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your questions. Bernard, you're a crazy guy for staying on for the full hour. I could not get the tough question in for Jeff. You wanted me to ask him my toughest question, but we'll try to bring him on again next time. Thank you, everyone. And with that, we're going to have the ending credits, and we'll see you again next week.